You're probably wondering why we're travelling through the night on a cart pulled by an Onyx Mastiff. Well, I shall tell you. After speaking with our patron, Laurel Silverhand, and a Harper agent who is also Hal's ex-boyfriend, Cassius, about the dastardly deeds of Ranulf Ilvaster, the new Open Lord of Waterdeep. I gave Cassius one of my sending stones to ensure that we would be able to communicate, and I took this opportunity to ask him to keep an eye on a cold case the old hag Amartia Morden, commander of the Watchful Order of Magists and Protectors, has decided to reopen. We briefly caught up with the master thief Cecile Dubois, who had tracked him apprehended after she stole several of the King's Tears, gems that hold information and memories inside them, to decide on how things were going to pan out. To provide a vague whiff of loyalty to her word, she provided us, well, me, with a King's Tear. We set off for Cormyr after Génie had fun trying to purchase some potions for the journey, leaving behind a definitely not stolen cuckoo clock and the painting of the fallen Asimar with the big sword by Van Trott, which were hiding for Jarl Axel, safely stashed in the basement of our cafe. It was on this journey that my friend Hal and his demon patron identical twin buddy Silshard had a small heart-to-heart in which Silshard commented that we seemed to be talking about enemies more than we used to. I, ever attentive to my emotional needs and those of my friends, asked Alec if he could help me recover some lost memories. Together we viewed some fragmented memories from my past, and with his help I think I can discover something about an incident that definitely hasn't haunted me for at least 8 decades. For now, though, Cormyr is coming into view, and we are about to arrive in the court of the Queen to further investigate the thefts of the King's Tears.
Alec.
Yes, me.
In the distance, Cormyr is approaching, but as we, your friends, look at you and look at your eyes, we see in your iris the last impression of the vision that you saw when you helped Oriyana search through her memories. That of a single tree atop a lone hill, engulfed in flame, and Oriyana kneeling there alone, clutching in her hand 2 engagement rings. That image, still the lasting image in your mind, as you begin to work out in your head the arcane calculations that you need in order to create a spell that will help Oriyana unlock more of her memories with your help. That memory you have taken on almost as your own. You felt everything that Oriyana felt in that moment. How does Alec feel having looked at that, having seen that memory, experienced that? What's going on for Alec?
Well, I think he's very quiet, just kind of running over it again and again in his head, and also thinking back to Barovia and the things that happened there with the other sacrifices, and just kind of trying to process it, because while he's not sure if that's something he can relate to, he also knows he probably has the best chance of relating to Oriyana on that.
Mm-hmm. How is Oriyana feeling?
She absolutely looks shaken to her core, but you can tell she's doing her very best not to look like that. She's kind of sort of fiddling with the rings around her neck before shoving them back down her shirt, trying to brush off those old feelings that she hadn't allowed herself to feel in many a decade.
All right. The night is passing, and the other 2 members of the party here present, Génie and Howl, will stir from their slumbers and awaken. Also travelling with you...
Yawns in French.
Yeah, bonjour.
Leon.
Also travelling with you is Silshard and Cecile Dubois, the former Zentarim thief who has been responsible for the theft of the King's Tears, and is travelling with you to Cormyr.
We're already in Cormyr, though, right? Because it's
yes, you are in Cormyr. Sorry, you are
right?
travelling to Suzail, which is the capital of Cormyr. That is where you are going.
Okay, cool.
So Suzail is rocking up in front of you. Suzail is the capital city. It is a very large city. It is mostly of elven architecture and design, although not without kind of human influence. But here, further away from the Sword Coast, things get distinctly less human and more begin more to align with the architecture that you would associate with beings from the Fae, with gnomes and halflings, and that kind of more Feywild, more mystical, more magical kind of architecture.
So, given that obviously Cormyr is on the border of, like, it shares a border with the Dale Lands,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, right? Obviously, Hal being from the Dale Lands, is that something that's shared in the Dale Lands, or is that like the difference in architecture? Is that like a Cormyr thing?
It's slightly more of a Cormyr thing because Cormyr is wealthier than the Dale Lands and therefore has bigger buildings and bigger cities.
Okay.
The Dale Lands, for our purposes, are mostly farmlands and big estates, like Howells. The kind of larger towns and cities aren't as grand as Suzail. Yes, whilst architecture in Dale Lands is very much influenced in the same way, there's just less of it.
So if we can, like, I assume we're basically able to see Suzail now
Yes.
as we're approaching. How does it like measure up to Waterdeep? Obviously, the city we're most accustomed to, like visually at least.
Suzail, by comparison, is minuscule.
Okay.
You would know that Suzail is its population is about 55,000. Waterdeep's is a couple million.
So it's like it's like comparing like Manchester to like
York.
Well, yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But it is still impressive. It's all stone architecture. You can see you can see in the distance, rising up from further into the city, the castle, which is built on top of a small cliff, and the castle is very much raised above the city. You can see elegant white stone and pointed blue roofs. These roofs that have been created out of blue slate that reflect reflect and sparkle in the morning sun. As you approach, the smell of wine and spices and citrus hangs in the air. This is evidently a place that does not want for things. It is still wealthy. Whilst most of the faces that you see as you are making your way down the road towards Suzail, most of the faces coming in and out of the city are humans. It's obvious that this place is influenced in terms of population by halflings and elves and half elves,
Sure.
but it's still dominantly human. But humans more willing to have had their culture influenced than perhaps further along the Sword Coast.
Sure. Okay.
You would know that Suzail is referred to as the brightest gem in Cormyr's crown.
Wow. Okay. How does if Hal looks towards Cecile, can I read anything on her expression? I'm thinking is Cecile anxious about meeting? Because the whole thing is Cecile's meeting for a handoff of the King's Tears, right?
Yeah, so Cecile is going to meet her employer and hand over the King's Tears. So if you would like to make a Wisdom Insight check, you may indeed make a Wisdom Insight check.
First roll of the game.
16. It's pretty alright.
So with a 16, you would be able to tell that she's got her professional face on, and you can see her lips moving, and you watch her lips move repetitively. You think she's practicing what she's going to be saying. She doesn't seem to be nervous, but she's definitely slightly more uncomfortable certainly more uncomfortable than she was when you apprehended her while she was sleeping, and she seemed completely fine with it, and that you were expected. Like, you saw her at her most vulnerable then, and she was fine. This time she's rehearsing things in her head.
Okay. Alright, Hal is going to turn to Cecile then, noting that, and say, so would this be a good opportunity for you to tell us a little more about your employer, maybe?
She says, well, I rather believe I've told you everything that I know, but we can go through it again if you like, for those who might not have been following the story so far, I suppose.
That sounds like that would be convenient if anyone were, like you say, not following the story so far. However, Hal will then say, I also kind of meant, well, I was wondering, are we meeting your employer when we go for this handoff? Or are we, well, meeting a middleman, as it were?
Make a wisdom insight check.
Okie dokie. I've asked a funny question. 17? That was very nearly a 3.
You have inquired once or twice of Cecile whether she is in full possession of the facts of who she's working for. And she has... Oh, that was a loud noise. She has told you... thank you for the follow. She has told you that she works for Thurgon Adlevo, who is a senior member of the court of the Queen. She... When you say that, there is no change in her. You don't believe that she's intending to hide anything from you when she next says, well, I am going to meet my employer. You, on the other hand, might give the wrong impression.
Hal's eyes are going to narrow, and he's going to say, well, what do you mean by that? Well, I mean, do they know who we are?
Well, darling, modesty does become you very well. You're very attractive when you're modest. Everybody knows who you are.
Hal goes bright red.
Everybody knows who you are. You are great heroes who prevented a crisis unfolding across all of Faerun. My dears, you're heroes beyond Waterdeep. I shouldn't be surprised if everybody here knows your names.
Hal goes bright red, kind of sneers at that, but there is like a definite like curling over the corner of his mouth as he's like trying not to grin. But he's going to turn away and like put one arm over the cart and look off into like the people coming in and out of the city and say, right, well, I suppose we don't get out of Waterdeep much, so we wouldn't know.
Well, quite. And I have to say, and she looks at your complexion and says, some more time in the sun wouldn't do you any harm, sir.
Hal will whip his head around and say, hey, what do you mean by that? I'm fine, don't comment on my complexion.
Silshard's there, like, looking at his arms, and he's like, yeah, sorry, we could tan more.
Hal will then turn back to Silshard and say, hey, could you not... You're not whatever.
What's wrong?
Hal will have a moment where he struggles not to laugh at, like, Silshard discovering that we are incredibly pale. And we're like, oh, whatever, you can go lay in the sun if you want, like a lizard or something. Go find a warm rock to sit on.
All right. He won't do that. He won't climb out of the car and find a warm rock to sit on.
You thought about it, though, didn't you?
I did think about it, yeah.
Okay.
Cecile will say, well, as you know, I have been contracted to steal the King's Tears from all across Faerun, absolutely gallivanting round the world, stealing King's Tears to give them to Thurgon Adlevo, who is a senior courtier in the Palace of the Queen. And, well, that's that. I don't ask more questions than that. My job is to steal the jewels and to be paid for having stolen the jewels, and as luck would have it, here we are. But no, darling, what I mean is that I am simply the best thief in the world. If I were to show up with friends, It would rather damage my reputation.
Howl will
Imagine having friends.
Yeah, Howl's gonna grin wirily and be like, "Oh, so you don't have many friends? Are we your first friends, Cecile?"
Don't twist my words.
Okay.
My personal life is absolutely none of your business.
Well, I mean, so long as it doesn't get us killed, and so long as your actions don't betray a personal life that, sucks, well, then I guess we're fine.
My dear, let me tell you this. Friends and family in my line of work and in your line of work are a liability. It's often the case that we hurt them, they hurt us, or as we saw the other week. Not even the other week, the other night, in fact. They get kidnapped to be used as training exercises for our narcissistic, sociopathic, homicidal, dare one say homicidal? One dare say homicidal.
I agree.
Zentarim leader uncle. Having friends and family, when you are a popular figure in our line of work, is a bad idea.
Howl kind of looks as if he's going to snap back, perhaps about Uncle Thomas, but then stops himself and says, "Okay, well, I suppose you overheard about that." Yeah, okay.
My dear, I'm a former member of the Zentarim. I overhear everything.
Yeah, I get it. You're very skilled and very cool.
Yes,
I'm not being sarcastic about that. Okay, you might be right, but I take issue with the idea of friends and family being a liability. Hal's gonna gesture to obviously everyone else on the cart and say, without the people on this cart right now, I don't think many of the rest of anyone else would be here, especially not me. So I don't think they're a liability.
Overhead, the sun has risen quite high in this morning, and you are about to go into the gates of Suzail. You are getting some funny looks from traders and merchants who have horses pulling their carts and trailers and so on, containing spices and wines, and it is midsummer, so a lot of cloth, a lot of clothing, summer clothing, vessels of water, and so on, and other juices are being transported into and out of the city. So your cart being pulled by an onyx mastiff is raising a few eyebrows.
Wait, it's onyx?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
Mad.
a stone, black stone dog, essentially, right? That's
Yeah.
How big is this thing, Oriyana?
Bigger than me, I think.
I believe mastiffs are medium size. Hang on.
Yes. I
Yeah,
think they
then
are.
It's like a big dog, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, bigger than me.
Big old boy.
Cool.
Yeah, Génie could comfortably ride the mastiff as a in place of a
Like
pony.
a steed.
Yeah.
And has done.
Well,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, seeing that, Howl's gonna say, "Hey, maybe we should switch to foot. Just, if Cecile doesn't want us to have a high profile and all."
Yeah, it's a bit flashy even for my taste.
Right,
What if Cecile started to travel separately from us?
yeah, and also what do we do about the cart? Once the Mastiff's gone, then we just have a cart.
I could pull it, I am pretty strong. I think we worked that out last time.
But that also might bring a lot of attention to us. Hal's gonna gesture around and be like, "Do you see anyone else with a person pulling the cart? Dan, do we see anyone else with a person carrying the cart?"
There are a few traders who are pulling their own carts, but they aren't as heavy laden as yours.
Is ours only heaven laden because we're on it?
Yes.
Look, let's just get off the cart, I think.
I'll get off and I will return the Onyx Mastiff to the teeny little figurine.
All right.
I'll tuck it back in my pocket.
It's like an amiibo.
I will stay in the cart being the small person. It would probably look weird if I was pulling the cart.
Okay.
Well, are we just going to abandon the cart?
Yeah, Hal's gonna see Génie staying in the car, gesture towards like everyone else and say, "You know that we both look really rather. We're not strong looking, you know." It's like Alec is like this emaciated lich man, and Hal's like a skinny twink, you know. It's like this isn't
Alex
gonna work.
okay.
Génie.
Snap off if he gets too cold.
We should all just get off the car.
Okay,
Let's
okay.
find- we'll
I
find
will
somewhere
pull the cart.
We'll find somewhere to put the cart and then we'll carry on.
Hal's gonna
Oriyana's
cover-
tall, isn't she?
Yeah.
So, if the smallest and the tallest person are pulling the cart,
Mm-hmm.
am I just dangling on one arm of the cart while Oriyana's pulling the cart?
You're like holding it above your head.
Yeah.
Whee!
Yeah, because oh fucking hell, yeah, Génie's like waist height for Oriyana.
Yeah.
Absolute circus happening. Hal's gonna kind of like flail his arms and be like, "Why don't we just leave the cart? It wouldn't be the first time we've abandoned the cart. There's nothing on the cart but us. What are they gonna do? Charge us for a new cart? We're very wealthy."
What have we rented
Just
it?
for
Have we
fly
bought it?
tipping.
Where did we get the cart from?
I believe we rented it, didn't we, or something? from
Yes, you
outside
did.
here.
Okay.
Like,
Is it sort
Find
of like?
somewhere safe for it and then we'll return it later.
We'll bill it to the company.
Did we rent it from a chain? Like, is there somewhere like a branch here we can drop it off
yes,
at?
it's fantasy Uber. Leave the cart.
I think you'll find it's fantasy enterprise cars. Uber, somebody comes and
Yeah.
picks you up. You don't rent a car from Uber.
The party saving the world, arguing about what they're going to
I'm
do
half
with their...
expecting to turn around and see Cecile just walking off into the crowd.
she's you can see without a wisdom insight check that she's thinking about it. But you can deposit the cart with a stable near the gates to the city if you wish, and come and collect it later.
If we must.
Okay. You deposit the cart with a stable near the gate, and then you may venture into the city.
Cool. As we're, I guess, going into the city proper, Hal's going to say to Cecile, "Okay, so you're meeting with somebody. We still kind of want to, gauge this whole situation really and work out if this is a real problem or if this is something that frankly doesn't concern us. I hear that I understand that you don't want us to be there, but can we at least, watch from afar? We can be fairly stealthy," Hal will say tentatively.
Well, you can certainly be there, but you can't be there with me.
I'll take that.
That's good enough for me.
Why don't we
Just check
arrange?
if I have polymorph prepared.
Why don't I see if I can arrange for my employer and I to meet in one of the city's many fine taverns?
That'd be like cheating on our tavern, though.
Well,
I do not see
We're
it.
allowed
sampling
to
the
visit other
competition.
taverns.
is it not what they say in the trade? Competitor research.
We'll leave a negative review. Let's do
Yes.
I do not think we
I'll
need to leave a
pretend their
negative
food killed
review.
me.
that. I'm gonna do some terrible
Sorry,
things to
can
their
you imagine
bathroom.
the insurance fraud that Alec could commit by walking into places, dying, and then suing them?
Why did you tell us that? That's such a good
The
idea.
reason Alec never pays taxes is because he's permanently marked as dead.
Did we... This has come so off topic, I'm so sorry for what I'm about to say, Dan, but I remember we mentioned a long time ago the fact that Howell died at the end of the last sort of major arc and then came back from the dead. Did we ever work out... Surely Howell could claim life insurance on that. On himself.
I think
Did Howell have life insurance though?
Nobody's from a really wealthy family. I feel like they would. Go on.
I
Yeah,
think that's something that might be accounted for in the rest of the plot for this arc. So
You know
find
what?
out.
I'm not going to question you on that. I think that's fair. You let us get away with a lot. Let's go for that.
Also, this,
No, it's
Later
genuinely
we go to
accounted
the
for. later on
4-hour
in the plot.
insurance company roleplay
Oh,
session.
it's a plot point. Anyway, carry on.
this is a good
What I
question.
said.
Do adventurers get insurance? Because surely
I think
the
they'd be higher
premium on
premiums.
that is just going to be huge.
Yeah.
There are adventuring guilds, and I assume that would be a logical thing for those guilds to have, like, insurance policies. I imagine us being endorsed by Laurel Silverhand we'd probably have some things in place with the Harpers, right?
Imagine trying to calculate life insurance premiums.
This is so off topic. I'm so sorry for bringing this up, Dan.
Dragons.
Well, speaking of things that are logical, no, this campaign is illogical. We can't use that as a segue. Speaking of non sequiturs, this segue into back into our story. Cecile will say, "Why don't we? Oh, let's be poetic about it, shall we? There's a tavern in the city called the Hidden Lady. Let's meet there."
But what time do you want to meet?
Let's say, well, I will have to check with my employer, but if I tell him to meet us here at his earliest convenience, then we can simply stay there all day. They have an absolutely fantastic garden where Howl and, is it Sylvester you're going by now? Yes, Sylvester, where you two can tan and get some colour in your cheeks. Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And
our complexion is perfectly fine.
And I would be very interested in having a conversation with Oriyana, as a matter of fact.
Wherever would you want a conversation with me?
Well, one master thief to another.
I'm
not a thief by trade, but okay.
But by ability.
I want to move closer towards Génie and be like, is this flirting? Are they flirting right now? But say it quietly, you know.
How do you think I have any idea what flirting is?
I do not know either.
Silshard leans in and says, "Howl, you thought that when you saw Commander Morden and Lord Ilvaster together that they were flirting, and there was no necessary impression of that, and here you're seeing Cecile and Oriyana talking and you're thinking they're flirting. Do we need to see about you and Cassius, or should we try and
Howl's
going to
turn and press a hand towards Silshard's actual lips,
shh. To be
You're
fair,
getting too good at this. You're too funny. Shut up.
Commander Morden and Lord Ilvaster definitely have in the past, if not are currently. And that's a fact.
We're gonna turn around. I feel like we're gonna the four of us are gonna turn around, and Oriyana and Cecile are just gonna be gone. Like,
we've already gone to go get wine. It's fine.
Let's go to the inn.
Wine already? Oof.
So
what time is it actually? Yeah, what time is it? Morning, right?
Morning, yeah. Well, mimosas with breakfast.
Just have we had a long rest since last session? Because I currently have no spells.
Yes, your long rest would have now kicked in. You have now concluded your long rest. So you gain all the full benefits of a long rest.
Let's just reset everything I didn't use.
So, as you make your way through the streets of Suzel, several things stand out to you. One, that the shops here tend to be less specialists and more kind of just like different levels of price. You aren't looking for a magic item shop and a furniture shop and a curtains upholstery, sort of thing. It's more that there are wholesalers of goods just at different levels of coinage as throughout the place, but there are a few specialists, and one that you pass in particular is Nalasso's Scroll Works, which is a shop that sells scrolls, scroll tubes, and other scroll-related products. There is also Tavernart's Tellings, which is a print shop that sells newspapers and notices, and also functions as like a paper chase, and sells some very nice stationery. Should you need any more company stationery.
Sorry, I just saw in chat that people are now discussing, a few people are discussing whether or not Faerun is flat. Please keep talking, Dan. Oh my god.
Faerun is confirmed round.
Please keep talking, Dan. I'm begging you.
There are several temples here. The biggest of which being the Towers of Good Fortune, which is the local temple dedicated to Tymora, who is the goddess of luck. There are several other shrines and temples, but that's sort of one of the bigger ones. There is also the House of Ogma, which is a temple dedicated to Ogma, the Lord of Knowledge, that you could see still functions as a school and academy. You can see a lot of children and school-age people running around and going in there. You can see scholars, teachers and scribes still being making their way in. There are a lot of clubs, inns, and taverns here. You pass a good amount of them.
Clubs. Like
one of them that you pass, for example, is called the Osculatory. The Osculatory.
That sounds turnt as hell. That sounds great.
It is also known. Cecile will tell you as you go through as the Kissing Club, and this is a favourite establishment with young nobles.
I've lost all interest.
Interesting. Technically speaking, Howl is a young noble. We may come back to this. Continue.
There are other places like the Dragon Riders Club, which is a club for the city's nobles, and that has that's known for a particular style of dancing that is done with masks, like nothing but masks.
And it's called the Dragon Riders Club.
Yep.
Suzail's great.
Is every club in Suzail secretly a brothel?
No, they're not. They're not secretly brothels.
They are out
secretly.
Sorry, use the wrong phrasing there.
And there's the Roving Dragon, an inn that offers cider and fresh tarts to its patrons. But we'll skip over the double entendre there, and progress on to the Hidden Lady.
We're going to get banned from Twitch if we go to any of these locations, aren't we?
That implies that we would go straight away if we weren't streaming.
Hey, see you later, Cecile. Out of the way, I'm trying to get it.
I mean, the one that has tarts is...
Dragon riding.
Every so often, Silchard does kind of say, but seriously, Hal, this is a good idea, right?
Stop suggesting. Are you suggesting we take Cassius to a club? Like, shut up.
No. What he's suggesting is he takes Cassius to a nude club.
Hal's like in between Génie and Silchard. Like, can you both shut up, please? We're supposed to be on a very professional.
Did you say that while I was drinking?
Hal's gonna like hands in pockets, kind of like moodily like walk a little bit faster, but he will grin a little bit. It is a kind of a good idea.
You want to take him to a nude club where you can see other people nude? Not to be rude. You think that is
why
a good idea?
Why are we exploring my character's sexuality now? This is becoming too recurrent of a theme. Please, can we move on?
The building that you are approaching, the tavern known as the Hidden Lady, is constructed in the same manner as most of the other buildings around you in Suzail. It's not too far away from the shores of the Dragonmere, which is the part of the waterways on which Suzail is built, but it is away from the bustle of the promenade. You can smell the present marine breeze in the air, that kind of the smell of salt water and seaweed and fish that lingers in the air in this dock, as well as hearing the distant hustle and bustle of fisher people and tradespeople and merchants as they begin their day's work, or for some of them finish their already long day's work at the docks. The building is nothing special. It has round windows that are made out of glass, made out of carved glass. You can see through open windows that there is a large tap room and bar that has a few tables, but is mostly armchairs and and tables and sofas set out in and around this large tap room. It looks like it could house a good 20 or 30 guests. It's a rather large building. But you get the impression stepping through that this isn't a place that would be frequented by nobles on a particularly regular basis. In there at the moment are mostly people enjoying breakfast, which is bread and slices of spring fruit topped with cream. When you step in, you are Cecile kind of steps forward to the counter of the bar and begins having a conversation with someone behind the bar.
Is there anyone else behind the bar?
There's no one else behind the bar. There's just this one individual at the moment. He is having a reasonably animated conversation with Cecile, and he then gestures to a set of sofas that are set out near one of the open windows that has a view onto the street outside of the Hidden Lady Tavern.
Gestures to all of us.
Points them out to Cecile,
Right.
those sofas. Cecile makes her way back over to you and says, "Well, our very charming patron has agreed that we can use these sofas for as long as we need them. We just have to keep buying things every so often. But he won't move us on. So, breakfast. I think breakfast is in order."
In the idea of buying things, I would very much like to see the menu.
Fantastic.
Go on, Dan. Come up with an entire fancy menu. No.
Well, I was going to ask, is there any mussels? It's been a while since I've had seafood, and the smell of the sea breeze is
So
do you have any mussels or
the menu that is
shellfish
available
on the menu?
Oh, we have lost someone. That's gonna make the live stream look funky.
Yay.
Wait, who have I become? Have I been shuffled around?
You've become Alec. There we are.
Oh, I'm Alec. I'm a lich.
I'm the dungeon master. Oh.
It will have reverted now as Miles reconnects. Where was I? What was that? Yes, mussels.
I was asking about shellfish on the menu.
Yes, there are shellfish on the menu. There are mussels. You can order mussels. There's a collection of spring fruits and sweet breads that you can have breakfast. That you can breakfast with. There are many different pressed juices and cordials that you can have. There are teas, coffees, all sorts of varieties of quite simple but rather tasteful, as in full of taste, food, breakfast foods for you to have. All very reasonably priced, cheaper than Génie's lamp.
How
I would
dare
like
they?
to. I would like to buy a plate of. What would I like? I would like to buy a jug of fresh juice.
What kind of
Yeah.
juice?
That is
They have tomato juice, apple juice, orange juice, pineapple juice, passion fruit juice, dragon fruit juice, cranberry juice.
Hey, Genie, ask them if they have like garlic juice or something. It'd be fun.
They do have garlic jam.
Okay.
I've never had garlic jam before. I've had garlic. Do you use garlic butter when you use garlic jam, or is it no? Is that too?
You double up with them.
You use garlic jam and garlic cream, and it's called a halfling's cream tea.
Interesting. I will go for a platter of various breakfast foods and a round of juices for everyone. For myself, I will have whichever is freshest.
Okay. Taking that as a general request for just a lot of breakfast foods, after a little while, this man will bring out a very large platter of fruit and breads and preserves, several pitchers of juices, and points, Génie, for you at a pitcher of pineapple juice that is there for you.
Merci, monsieur.
And he will then depart. Cecile sits down, sits down on a sofa, very relaxed, and pours for herself some tomato juice, and picks up a pastry and begins to eat.
So, Cecile, have you already requested for your employer to visit us, or is that something you still need to do?
I have arranged via our patron for a message to be passed to the palace, and we will see what happens and when.
Okay,
So,
I guess we just wait then.
It seems so.
When they arrive, do we need to hide, or are you going to pretend like you don't know us and sit at a different table? How is this going to work?
Well,
If you want, I can hide behind my newspaper. I'm very good at disguises.
Once we've finished eating, I will go and sit elsewhere.
Fair enough. I did mean to ask, I mean, I know you said you wanted to go and speak to Oriyana at some point as well, but before you do that, we are wondering a little bit if this whole situation obviously has anything to do with the activities of Lord Ilvaster. It's kind of a suspicion we have. The guy seems suspicious, but I also am aware that Lord Ilvaster may or may not have some connections with the Queen of Cormyr. Is it Raedra or Obruskier? Obruska. And obviously you say that your employer, is it?
Obruskier. That's how it's pronounced.
Obruskier, okay. Yeah. And obviously your employer, is it Fairgon Adlevo, you said?
Yes.
He's the senior courtier of the Queen's Palace.
Yes.
So I was wondering, completely aside from your job, if you're comfortable answering, what do you think? Do you think there is something bigger going on here? That these King's tiers seem very specific to collect, or is it completely independent? Do you have any theories on the Queen or even your employer?
Well, I'm not one to gossip, but
I feel like you definitely are.
She says, no, it's a terrible habit that one mustn't get into. That being said, yes, I think there's something in it. I think that your Lord Ilvaster is somehow involved in my commission to steal the King's tears. Whatever these gems contain, the information must be very valuable.
I kind of suspected something like that as well. I've been thinking about it more and more since it happened, and, well, when the King's Tier in the museum in Waterdeep was taken, I don't know, Lord Ilvaster was really, really eager to pin that on the Harpers, a group that he's no longer really supporting. It seemed almost as if it was too easy, and that, well, maybe it was intentional that they were able to get to it.
Well, it certainly was very fortuitous for me that the party was rescheduled to happen in that building. Had the party not happened in that building, then it would have been rather more difficult for me to pull it off convincingly. I wouldn't have been able to have a distraction and get away so smoothly if the building had been empty. It proved a rather happy coincidence, one might say, that Lord Ilvaster came into power when he did and decided to have his inauguration party in that very building.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's too many coincidences, I feel. Well, take this as a compliment. I feel that somewhat confirms what I already thought. You seem to have a lot of knowledge about things.
Thank you.
Hal will look a little bit embarrassed after complimenting Cecile, and will go a little bit red, and he's going to take a long sip from pineapple juice.
Just as you get it to your mouth, get the pineapple juice to your mouth, Silchard's going to, nudge you in the ribs, kind of.
Hal's gonna just about manage to not obviously begins to take a sip from pineapple juice, manage to just about not spit it out, being nudged in the ribs while about to drink, and then we'll kind of slowly turn to Silchard and quietly mutter to them, "Hey, what are you trying to do?"
He says, I'm trying to be funny.
Stop trying to be funny all the time. So, Howl's gonna turn to like whoever's on the other side of Howl, like
Alec.
I don't know, if it's Alec. I'll say they've discovered humor, and it's getting a little. It's not as funny the gajillionth time, Silshard. I mean,
It's
Sylvester.
adorable.
Don't encourage them.
Well, you have to remember that Sylvester is basically a fully grown newborn baby in terms of
They are a
intelligence.
full-grown, and Howl will say this almost too loud, and then will bring his voice down, realizing that they're in public. Saying, they are a full-grown. They were a demon of greed, and obviously that's totally fine. But also, they can be a little, what's the word? Devilish. Hal will say that like to Silshard.
Silshard doesn't seem to have heard you, and is currently spooning spoonfuls of berries from a bowl directly into his mouth.
Hal will turn to Silshard and say, you could use a plate.
He mutters at you through.
Berries.
He mutters at you through like a mouthful of berries, and just goes, "She's here."
Yeah, all right, whatever.
You have the reflection in your mind. At least he's using cutlery.
Hal coming. All right. I will turn back to you, Cecile.
Oriyana, make for me, please, a perception check.
Secret things.
Given that my passive perception is also 23. That is a 23.
Okay.
Wow.
You catch sight through the open window of a young man in blue robes.
Oriana's just she'll have gotten herself a coffee and just freezes with it halfway to her mouth, just no.
The man currently has his back to you, but has a wild hair, and as he turns, you see that this is a human man, very pale skin, early 30s, standing opposite you on the other side of the street. It looks like he's just bought a coffee from a coffee shop over the road, and now moves on up the road. Make a charisma saving throw.
Oh, no.
Oh my god!
A saving throw!
That's a 15.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
What's that mean?
Carry on.
Oh, I hate that, Dan. This is horrible.
Oriana
Awful.
will, after seeing that, she'll set the glass back down. She'll be like, excuse me one moment, and she'll go to the bar to seek a stronger drink.
Okay. The bartender says, this early on, all I can serve you really are breakfast cocktails. Would you like a Bloody Mary or a mimosa?
Bloody Mary.
Okay. You will be given a pitcher of Bloody Mary.
Brilliant.
Do they only deal in
pick
pictures?
up
You're
the
on
jug,
too.
grab a straw, and leave any glasses on the desk. She's like,
Okay.
yep, this is fine.
It's open wide. I would just pour it all in if you want. Is everything okay? I mean, it's a bit early, even in my standards for day drinking.
Oriyana, Cecile is fixing you with a bit of a stare that to you indicates she can get you out of this if you want.
Oriana's gonna hesitate. And this would probably be the first time that the group's ever actually seen Oriana hesitate before giving a slight nod to Cecile, please get me out of this.
Cecile says, well, now that we're all settled down for breakfast, Oriyana, I have some thievery questions that I need to run by another very practiced hand. Shall we?
Absolutely.
Let's leave the gentleman here and
leave the boys alone for a
yes.
bit.
Who are you calling a boy? I'm older than
We
these
come
two.
back and we've burned this
And
place
I am
down.
older than
Yeah,
you.
Telling you.
and Silshard's a demon. Or was.
Cecile will take you to the other side of the room, to two armchairs that have their backs to the sofas that your friends are sat on. And Cecile will gesture for you to sit in one and she will sit in the other.
How big are they?
I'm just going to quickly
They're
get
like
to the toilet.
big wing-back armchairs, so quite wide.
Good, Oriyana's going to sit cross-legged in it.
Do we need to not listen for anything? Or...
From where you are, you won't be able to actively overhear each other.
So this is going to be real life information, but not character information.
Correct. Player knowledge versus character knowledge. Cecile will look at you and says, say, my dear, what happened? That was the most awful look you gave that man out the window.
There's a lot of stuff that I need to work through. He looked like somebody that I once knew.
One doesn't intend on overhearing things, but one does. And does this have anything to do with what happened between you and Mr. Victus last night?
Thief to thief.
Of course.
Anything you overheard, please do not mention to anybody else. It's...
My darling, I simply would not. I'm not one to gossip. But you get the
Yeah.
you saw her a few moments ago when she said that and then did gossip, and you see her say that now. It's completely different. You are assured in that moment that she will not mention this to anyone else.
Yes, he looked like Sam.
I see.
Well, till he turned around.
Well, yes, quite. Those blue robes? Or was it...
Are they the exact same robes that Sam used to wear, or...
Yes.
Oriyana will nod and take, a big sip of the cocktail. Exact same robes.
Those robes are unique. They are of the wizards who teach at or are somehow associated with the school here in Suzail. The House of Cormyr.
So, also obligatory. Cormyr? Hardly knew her.
Ogma nuts.
The first time you said it, I was like, I can't interrupt him.
I wasn't gonna do it until I didn't want to break the tension, but then Tony did it.
Yep. I had to, I'm sorry. Seriousness. So, I could go there, and I could see where he used to teach, work.
If that's what he did, as I say, the robes of that particular shade of blue are unique to that school, but they do have outposts, as it were, connections all across Faerun. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was this place that your friend was connected with, but that institution certainly.
Be worth looking to, if at least to give me some peace of mind, and to hopefully get me used to seeing those robes if it's a common thing around here.
I'm afraid it may be common in Suzail.
Thank you for telling me that.
No, thank you for trusting me.
I guess it's one thing thieves rarely do.
Indeed.
You had questions for me.
She will then launch into a number of kind of technical questions about jobs you've done in the past, and just wants to know about some of the stuff that you've some of the jobs that you've pulled off in your history, and is kind of quite interested in hearing about your achievements as a rogue and as a thief and as a bounty hunter.
Nice. Oriyana will spare no detail.
Fantastic. What's going on the boys' table?
I mean, I think Hal will be obviously just like eating breakfast, but also kind of, I don't know, nervous about this whole situation. Having Cecile basically confirm that she also has a similar theory that Hal's developing about what's going on is probably just making him more and more nervous with the knowledge that, like, these King's Tears do something, and, you know, we don't know what memories are necessarily going to be stored in them, and why Lord Ilvast or why Raedra or whoever it is wants them. So Hal's probably pretty awkward and quiet right now.
So I'm just watching Miles's cat give him a shoulder massage.
It's really hard not to look at the cat.
It's so cute.
He's attacking me.
It's adorable.
He's trying to get me to pet. I can't like stroke him at this angle, but he doesn't want to like sit on the chair.
You should get one of those back scratchers and use that.
Just like, yeah, from behind.
Yeah. Can I, like, is it obvious that Howl is being nervous?
To the party, definitely, at this point. The party would know Hal's tells when he's being, like, brooding, or whatever.
Is everything okay, Owl? You seem to have gone fairly quiet. Something troubling you?
Howl will, like, kind of prod at, like, a piece of fruit, like a raspberry or something, and say, it's nothing that we aren't already worried about. It's just that, so the King's Tears, what Cecile has been sent after, they store memories, and obviously we know that either this Adlevo fellow, or maybe even by extension the Queen of Cormyr, Raedra, or maybe, given we know that those two are now connected, maybe even Lord Ilvaster, they want them for something, and we know that they store memories, so the real question becomes, I believe, what memories are they looking for, and why? That scares me a little bit, that there's... When we were dealing with the consensus, for the most part, at least we knew they were doing something bad. At least we knew that whilst ultimately their goals and Tartarus's goals were beyond our comprehension, you know, we had something to point at and something to go, that's what we need to stop. We don't even know if what Lord Ilvaster or Raedra or anyone else wants with these memories. We need to know what the memories are. It scares me that we don't.
So we do not know if we can even trust Cecile at this point.
Well, exactly, that's what I'm trying to work out. It's just very hard to when we don't know what the memories they're looking for are, because clearly the memories are what they're looking for, right? But that makes sense to me.
Silshard will just kind of, through mouthfuls of cereal that he's now eating.
Is he eating from the packet, or has he got a bowl now?
He's got a bowl and has poured milk in it, and he's eating like properly, but he's eating the cereal.
Did Silshard pour the milk or the cereal first? This is so off topic, but I need to know.
Silshard poured the cereal first, then the milk.
Okay,
we're good, that's fine.
But he is eating it with his hands.
That's fine.
He's actually scooping it up.
Yeah.
He's not eating like Weetabix with beans.
Yeah, just shoveling it in. Anyway, he kind of says between mouthfuls of cereal, it is weird that he says, it does feel weird that we've gained more enemies but lost a focus.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I feel like we have a pretty good radar for the fact that whoever wants these King's Tears probably has a bigger goal in mind. Just frustrates me that we don't know what that is. You know, we know that Lord Ilvaster is probably a bad dude, but it's hard to give that direction. You know, and I can't be mad. I can't be too angry with. I can't be too mad with Cecile because, well, I think I believe her when she says that she doesn't really know much more than we do now. I can't fault her for wanting to make a living. I don't think she doesn't seem like a bad person. But again, I didn't think my uncle was a bad person, and he's really testing me. So I don't know.
How long has it been since the party to now? It's only been a few days, hasn't it?
2 or 3 days, yes. 3 days.
Do you think we are not moving a bit too rashly at the moment?
Well,
I mean, it's been only a few days since we discovered what the King's Tears were, and now we are out on the trail of the person who is stealing them. We do not know if we can trust them. We don't know what their motives are. We don't even know who the end person is in the chain of
exactly.
events.
So this is the thing. Okay, so I'm not. I don't want to sound like I'm questioning, I guess, too much or too little, but hypothetically, what happens if we find out that what they want to do with the King's Tears isn't evil? You know, we're running into this acting as though it's, you know, an apocalypse scenario all over again, or some grand evil plot like we've dealt with so many times now. What happens if they're going to use the King's Tears for something good? What happens if Cecile stealing them, which by my standards is, well, basically a victimless crime? What happens if what the memory tells this person is, I don't know, how to do something great, how, like, cure some disease, or to make the world a better place? I don't know if I feel like we of all people should be the arbiters of that, you know?
Did we find out last time that if you combined them or something, or to make them was quite a devastating thing?
To make them is so they are naturally occurring gemstones that have this ability to receive imprints of memory. When memories are imprinted into them, those memories are then lost. It's a way of storing information that you don't necessarily think that you want to remember yourself, but it also shouldn't be lost forever.
But it's not like a Horcrux where you have to kill someone.
No, not at all.
Okay.
People can implant part of their soul into it, and these can be living memories, certainly. But kind of not much more than imprints, rather than any kind of like actual. They're not phylacteries. They're not liches. Phylacteries. And then to release them, you have to crush them, and it's a one and done thing. Once the information has been released, it is released. The memory plays, the imprint of the soul is there, and then it is not. So the information in them is, because you can't know what it is, that kind of makes it a bit more valuable.
Yeah.
Oriyana, has Oriyana explained what Oriyana managed to sense about the information that is in this King's Tear? No, so you don't know any of that?
Not yet, no.
Yeah.
No.
So, I feel like we should come up with some kind of long-term plan of action, let's say, to maybe either gain control of the King's Tears, so that at least we are the ones in control of the situation, rather than being the ones following the situation. I think we need to get one step ahead, but I do not know how to get there. And then...
Sorry, Génie, you just gave me a very interesting idea.
Well, that is what I do. I am the idea person.
Well, you said, well, what if we got control of the King's Tears before whoever else did? Well, there's multiple King's Tears. Maybe if we used one of them, we'd get an inkling of what they were trying to work out. Maybe it'd be enough to just tip us off to whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Also, we happen to be travelling with two of the best thieves on Faerun. I am willing to bet that Cecile probably wants to make the handoff and wants to get paid because, she's a professional after all and everybody has to make a living. What's stopping us hiring Cecile to take at least one or maybe multiple of the King's Tears back? We have Oriyana as well. I'm willing to bet those two together could steal basically anything. They could probably steal, I don't know, our house without us knowing.
So you're thinking that if we do that, or Cecile does the handoff now, hands over the current King's Tears that she has, and then we steal them back from them, and then
maybe.
We crush one of those, find out the type of information they hold.
Look, in the grand scheme of things, if what the King's Tears are hiding does turn out to be, I don't know, some world-ending thing, as we tend to get involved in.
Do you not think that is a bit risky, though? I mean, we do not know what is on them. It might be a recipe for a cake. It might be
Well, exactly.
a secret to build something like a big bomb or something like that.
And if we're the ones that know, once we know, then we can use that information to decide what to do with the rest of them. We only need to get the one.
I think it's just getting the one is too small of a sample size. It does not give enough information about the
we
others.
know about 6 of them, right? We know, like, is it 6?
You know about 6 of them. Cecile has 3 of them, including the one that Oriyana is currently holding on to.
We don't know that Oriana has that either, though, I don't believe. I think Oriana knows that, but...
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You know
okay.
she's got it, but not what's in it.
Okay.
We know that one is up in...
So, of the 3 that remain...
In a museum.
Yeah, of the 3 that remain, one is in the Netherwinter Museum, one is owned by Laurel, and the other is in the hands of a private collector.
Who is not Laurel.
Who is not Laurel.
So is Laurel is the old private... Is Laurel the old private collector or the new private collector? Because I've got...
So, there was...
Private collector twice.
There were 2 that were in the hands of private collectors, and Laurel let on that she is one of them.
Would she be the one that is the new one though? Because you said that it was recently.
There's 2 people who have them, like individuals. I think that's all.
So recently, one of them was sold by the king of. Can't remember the name of the country off the top of my head. It's one of the ones that begins with V. It's in the north. Who needed the money, so sold it, and that was purchased by a new private collector. And that's the one that is in the hands of the new private collector. The one that's the
Vesperin?
Yes. And then the one that's been in the hands of a private collector for a very long time, Laurel hinted that was her.
Okay, so we have a potential lead in Vesperin.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
So, given what we know... Yeah, I mean, it's only one idea, but I would certainly like to know more about what's going on with these things before we decide what to do. The last thing I want to do is go and make a fool of ourselves if they are just looking for, I don't know, a recipe for a very nice cake.
I wonder if we could ask Oriyana to see if she can gain any kind of information about what might be entwined in these gems. I mean, she has a way with.
I mean,
with these sort of, with souls and things. She might be able to glean some kind of information to give us a little bit of insight. I do not know.
I mean, between Oriana's aptitude with that kind of thing, we'll say, and also the fact that we have, and Hal will turn to Alec and say with a grin on his face, probably the smartest person on the planet. I feel like perhaps we could work something out without maybe breaking it. We could at least look into it. We could at least try.
Through this entire conversation, while my cat tries to get us banned from Twitch, Alec has been he's laid out his spellbook in front of him, and he's just scribbling notes in the margins. He's trying to basically doing equations just in the margins of his notebook, and he's just completely not paying attention to anything.
Yeah.
Playing with an actual cat that has come into the bar.
Yeah, and decided to shed all over everything.
I mean, we'll discuss it when Oriana comes back, and with Cecile as well. I think Cecile is probably very neutral in this, in that she's just doing her job, so I don't see the harm in discussing it with her. Also, if it does end up with us paying her, I'm sure she'll be pretty fine with that.
Do you think she has the sense of moral compass to, if we could convince her to do it for free, if we said we were aiming to save the world of some kind, Is it...
Well,
I
mean...
don't think she would want to see the world end, so maybe we could go down that route instead of trying to pay her.
Oh, I have a really silly but very convincing idea for that as well. Hal almost looks annoyed at himself for having this idea, and will say, okay, well, we know that Cecile has a great deal of respect for Oriana as a thief. We could strike a different deal, a bet even. Well, let's say both we have both Oriana and Cecile trying to get at least one more of these King's Tears in addition to the one that we know that Oriana already has. If Cecile gets to it before us, then we pay Cecile for it. If Oriana gets there before, then Cecile has to work for us for free. And maybe be our friend. I don't know. She seems kind of cool.
I think we should still. I think the easiest way would just be to steal the ones that Cecile is about to hand over.
But then we run the chance of annoying Cecile, and we may never.
I do not think so. I think she's just a person who goes.
And holding a hand up there.
It's
Dan, you're the DM. You can just speak.
No,
like...
carry on, and then when you finish this thought, come back to me.
Okay.
I do not think Cecile is the kind of person who has, favorites. I think they just favor whoever is paying them at the time. Well, I think once she hands this over, if she's not being paid by them, I don't know why she would have an issue stealing from them straight away. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, there's only one way to find out, right? We just ask. I feel like either way, we can at least draw the conclusion that we need to find out what these memories mean, and we have multiple ways and varying levels of extremeness of doing that. Let's just ask and see where that goes.
Alec, make an
Dan,
intelligence arcana check. Thank you.
30.
You work out. Are you working on the spell?
Yes.
This spell will require verbal and somatic components. And likely, and will likely have a casting time of a minute.
Are these more secrets?
Verbal plus somatic. 1 minute casting time.
Yeah. No, it's just what Alec's working on in the background. So, the conversation about Cecile's... so the conversation between Cecile and Oriyana is about Oriana's previous jobs and exploits as a thief that Oriyana is dutifully and with some pride telling Cecile. The rest of you are discussing, debating what to do next. That, I think, is a good point for us to take a break. We will break for around 10 minutes and try to come back just after 25 past. So, roleplay amongst yourselves. We'll take a quick break and be back in 10 minutes or so. Goodbye. Hello, we have returned. I hope you roleplayed amongst yourselves. I expressly asked for it. You're right.
Sorry, I found that really funny. Carry on.
Okay. A few hours have passed with you whiling away conversation in the bar before a elven man in green and red robes with a red trim, sets foot through the door. He looks distinctly uncomfortable and awkward and not happy to be there at all. He has pale yellow irises, and is it irises? Pupils. What are the bits that are coloured in your eyes? Iris, yeah. Pale yellow irises, and a very light brown hair that goes down to the middle of his back that is plaited. On his hand there are several rings, and he carries, strapped to his side, a wand and a spell book. So Alec would immediately recognise fellow wizard. And when he walks in, he is scanning around the room, and Oriyana, you see from behind the bar the bartender kind of give a cough and nod at Cecile.
Oriyana will give just
cough
like a little
and a nod
to Cecile, like, I'll leave you be, and it will quietly just step away from where Cecile is.
Okay. The individual now standing in the doorway looks at you just as you're walking past, but kind of pays you no particular mind. Cecile then stands up and turns around and smiles at and smiles at this individual and beckons him over, and they go and sit down together. To this point that you realise, of course, that Cecile and Oriyana were sat so far away that you weren't able to overhear them simply from where you were sat. So what, if anything, would you like to do to see if you can overhear this conversation?
Is anyone looking at us right now?
No.
Howl is going to use his Eldritch Invocation. Which one is it? It is... it's Shroud of Shadow.
Mm-hmm.
I can cast invisibility at will without expending a spell slot. Howl's just going to, disappear immediately. Not going to get too close because obviously this person is a spellcaster and they might get a vibe if I am invisible near them too soon. Howl's just going to be invisible and just get close enough to hear.
Okay.
I would like to go to the bathroom, and then while I'm in there, cast polymorph on myself and turn myself into a fly.
Okay. Can you polymorph into creatures that can fly?
Should be able to at a high level.
I don't actually think there's rules for it the same way there are for wild shape. It's
Okay,
just,
in which case you polymorph yourself into a fly. You have an hour as a fly, as long as you
Well,
don't
actually, it depends. Does a fly have a challenge rating of 15 or less?
Yes.
Big fly.
Its challenge rating would be
Big
0.
Okay, yes, I can
Ultra fly.
I would argue it's higher than 1 because, have you ever tried swatting a fly?
They've just got high dex.
But if you actually hit it,
Anyway.
it dies.
The definition of off topic. We're arguing the dex of a fly.
So you transform into a fly. Okay, so Oriyana and Génie, are you two doing anything, or are you happy to allow your companions to overhear things?
Oriyana will quietly loiter. Like, she was already in that general vicinity anyway, so...
Okay, in which case you can make me a wisdom perception check.
That is a 23.
Okay. Is Génie doing anything, or are you happy?
I think I would have got the idea that 3 of my companions would have tried to be listening in. So I'm going to keep an eye on anyone else who comes in after this elven man.
Good idea.
To see if there's any, he's got any backup.
Make an insight check.
Oh, I'm not too bad with insight. That is a 92. Or a 17 if I read the dice correctly.
Okay. Okay, so this is what happens. When those of you who are overhearing things get into place, you hear Thagon say to Cecile...
Name drop.
Whatever he was called. Say to Cecile... Do you have them? Well, yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I have 3 of them. That was as many as I could steal in the time that was allotted to me. But I'm rather sure you know of a 4th, don't you? I'm not sure to what it is you are referring. Well, says Cecile, the recent purchase of that 4th one. There are very few noble families with the money to be able to purchase a tear directly from another king. It may be that the Queen has acquired a 4th tier on her own. The 3 that you have will be very useful for her collection, I'm sure. It is, of course, regrettable that the other 2 were not able to make their way to Cormyr. Well, one we know is in the Neverwinter Museum. That should be perfectly possible, perfectly easy, eminently doable to steal. And the other one is in the hands of another private collector, I believe. It's quite simply, we'll never be able to know who that is without proper records checking, which is quite tiresome. Well, we will have to hope then, for our sakes, that the Queen is satisfied with the information contained in the 4 that we have access to. I don't suppose you are able at all to tell what sort of information is in there? No, quite beyond my skill set, quite beyond my skill set. I'm afraid that whatever it is that the Queen is looking for, she will have to smash the gems to get. Oh, that would be most regrettable if she were not able to understand in advance what that information might be. He says, I do, however, know now what it is that our Queen is searching for. It seems that she is looking for information concerning a lost library, the library of Terrachmus, the Unyielding, the library of Terrachmus the Unyielding. It has something to do with her brother and her fiancé. I am assured by common custom in this part of the world that her brother and her fiancé are different people. That brings a smile to her face. He has no emotion whatsoever and says, no, indeed. Her fiancé, Oberyn Crownsilver, and her brother, the late king. Oh, of course, she inherited, didn't she, from her brother? Yes. It seems that her late brother, the late king, was interested in the library of Terrachmus the Unyielding and the Book of Terrachmus, and that is a interest that he shared with Oberyn Crownsilver. Since Lord Crownsilver's disappearance, the Queen has been looking for all manner of things connected to him. I believe she believes that these tiers will contain information about the library to such a degree that she herself is able to find out what her brother and her missing fiancé were so interested in. Well, that would be rather delightful, wouldn't it? I suppose it would be very gratifying to discover after all these years what one's relatives were interested in. Tell me, has payment been arranged? Yes. Your payment of 1,000 platinum pieces waits for you at the palace. There is, I am told by Her Majesty, an additional bonus for you. Oh, well, I'm all ears, as they say. If the gems do indeed contain the information pertaining to the library of Terrachmus, Her Majesty would like an experienced adventurer to escort her into the library to discover for herself what it is that her relatives were so interested in, and indeed if there is anything there of value to Cormyr. Well, I'm flattered that you should consider me, but I'm not really a seasoned adventurer. As it happens, I do know some who I'm sure would happily take on a commission for you, who would certainly be willing to venture with Her Majesty into any sort of dangerous and, as previously, unexplored or long-forgotten place. Sounds right up their alley. I will make inquiries of them. I also shouldn't think that they'd be too expensive a hire. Do you know how much they would charge? Well, one wouldn't wish to put words in their mouth, of course, but I'd rather say that for around 100 gold pieces each, they should be eminently satisfied.
Okay, I'm invisible right now, right?
Yep.
If this goes terribly wrong, don't hate me because it's good. Can I, invisible, get real close to Cecile's ear and try to whisper real quietly into her ear?
Okay, make a stealth check.
I'm still invisible either way.
You are, so with advantage.
With advantage, okay. Stealth check with advantage. That's going to be 22.
Okay. What do you whisper?
I will whisper into Cecile's ear. Be reasonable. Tell him at least, I don't know, like 10,000 in gold each, at least.
She will cough and say, excuse me, I misspoke. 100 platinum pieces each.
Why don't you mention that? I don't know. You said everyone should know who we are. We did save the known universe.
But there is another group that might equally be interested in such a commission who are rather low, I believe, visiting Cormyr at this time. They might be slightly more expensive, but I assure you, eminently more reliable. You have heard, of course, of the rather regrettable incident that's being referred to as the crisis on Faerun? Of course. Very many, if not everyone, is aware of the crisis, and those individuals that managed to prevent it, they reside in Waterdeep, do they not? Well, yes, but as it happens, they're holidaying here in Suzel right now. How fortuitous. Well, yes, indeed, and I rather think that they might be willing to interrupt their vacation to take on such a commission as this, but you would be hiring, one must understand, simply the best adventurers in all of Faerun, if not beyond. So you would need to be very rewarding and also very accommodating of their eccentricities. I would rather think they would be willing to be paid somewhere in the region of around 1,000 platinum pieces. He says. And what are their eccentricities? I'm quite sure that you would be willing to tolerate anything. After all, these are the most profound, the most brilliant, the most wonderful adventure. Yes, their eccentricities, please. Yes, I was rather getting there. Well, let me see. They have a halfling who speaks with a very bad Belgian accent. They have a rogue who's undergone some recent psychological trauma. They have a wizard. Just seems very dismissive of wizards. Like, in such a way as like, they have a wizard.
The venom behind wizard.
And they have a they have a warlock. Who I believe is a nephew of Lord Thomas Blackwood, in fact. You know, so.
Don't name drop Uncle Thomas. Oh my god.
Which accounts for many of this young man's eccentricities. So how could it not when one has Lord Blackwood as their uncle?
I just like that Genie's class is a complete mystery to her.
Yeah,
She knows what everyone else is, but Genie is just.
And
could be anything.
I believe this young Master Blackwood has an identical twin brother that he travels with. Interesting. They sound like a rather unlikely group. Well, yes, but aren't all the greatest adventuring parties simply the most unlikable assortment of individuals? It's almost as though they come up with their abilities and their backgrounds without consulting each other, or indeed those who will be sending them on the adventure before getting together to form the adventuring group.
Take the shot, she knows too much.
He says,
What's a party balance?
He says, indeed. This has for a while been one of the difficulties with hiring any groups of adventurers in Suzel and Cormyr at large, which is why we prefer to maintain our tight circle. Oh yes, what is it, the name of this group of individuals that you have undertaking tasks for you? The Azure Keepers. Oriyana, make a charisma saving throw.
It's a 13.
Okay. Carry on.
Oh.
You can also... So, back of your mind, Oriyana.
Mm-hmm.
Azure Keepers sounds very familiar, but you can't place why. But it's beginning to make you anxious. Why can't I tell? Why don't I know what that is? I've got a very good memory. I know all these things. These people are relying on me to have it together. Why can't I remember? Are the thoughts that are playing in your mind at the moment. But nothing more than that. Oh yes, you're silly little wizards. Yes, well, I rather think that you will be very well equipped with this particular group. Would you like me to bring them along to the palace? Yes. If you don't mind, I will take all 3 tiers now. Oh, well, you'll rather understand that I'm not willing to be parted from the tiers before you are also parted from your platinum. That is understandable. Bring these heroes, these great heroes, and the king's tiers to the palace, and I will arrange an audience with the queen. In, shall we say, 2 hours? Good, do not be late. And without taking a breath, he just says, good, do not be late. Stands up, gets around, and just walks out. Quite, like, robotically, almost like, almost like kind of, he just doesn't care anymore.
Invisible Howl will, like, swing out of the way to avoid being hit by this man who cannot see him. And
then Cecile will kind of just look around a little bit, and will then grab you out of the air, Howl, and slam you into the seat. You're still invisible at this point, but we'll slam you down, and we'll say, "See, I got you the job. Don't try to do that again. Remember that I am a very well accomplished thief, and that means that my senses are always about me, and if you ever try to sneak up on me whilst invisible again, I will make sure that a rather sneaky attack with a dagger finds its way underneath your ribcage and into your heart. There's a good darling."
Howl will, smirk and then make himself visible again, while still presumably, half on the table.
Yep.
And will grin up at Cecile and say, "You wouldn't be the first person to try and attack me from behind, and I highly doubt you'll be the last. Also, it's a good thing you didn't, bang me into any food or anything on this table. This is a very expensive cape."
She will let go of you.
Cool.
So, during all of that conversation that all of you who were eavesdropping overheard, Génie, you got a 17 for your... Was it 17 for your insight?
93.
92, you said a minute ago.
You get a
and
92.
Then a 17.
Sorry, misspoke. It should have been a 93.
Okay. With a 17...
Watching your rolls.
Sounds reasonable.
With a 17
Sounds
insight
right.
check, you saw that this person had been followed in by 2 other individuals, a human man and woman who had sat down at another table and got up and left just before. They got up and left a minute or so before the elf got up and left. But after, you realise they had been watching him the entire time and must have taken some sort of signal. There is also, you notice, stood outside the cafe, nonchalantly drinking from a coffee cup on the other side of the road, someone watching the cafe that was not there before the elf arrived, and as the elf departs, bins his coffee cup and departs with the elf.
Did it look like they were a protection detail? Or a covertly spying detail?
With a 17, you reckon that the 2 that came in were most likely protection detail or associates of some kind. The one that stayed outside, you think might not have been anything to do with him, as in they're on his instructions, but his arrival was very coincidental.
Was the one outside wearing the same things as the 2 that came in?
No.
Or was it just a casual person?
All 3 of them were just kind of wearing nondescript clothes.
So there wasn't any kind of uniform between the 2 that came in?
No.
Okay. with the two that came in, did they look like they were just watching the conversation, or did they see anything else happening, such as a fly curiously close to the conversation, an invisible person that might or might not have been there?
Make another wisdom check. Wisdom insight.
Ooh, that's a 12, I think. Or 51.
No, it's not a 51.
You aren't,
Insight. Yeah, 12.
You aren't able to tell what it was that they were watching.
Okay. Were they obviously watching the conversation, or did it look like they were just happened to come in at the same time and then leave just before?
You are convinced that their arrival was not happenstance, and that their arrival was associated in some way with the elf. You aren't sure what their motivation was.
Okay. And I didn't see any sort of trigger for them to leave.
You think there must have... So, let me regroup on myself a bit there. The two that were inside the bar, the man and the woman, you think were there with the elf, as in on his instruction, and you think they received some sort of signal to leave. You don't know if you don't know what they overheard, what they saw. With a 12 on that, you aren't able to pick up what they may have picked up. The man outside, you believe, could be there coincidentally, but probably not, but would not be there on the instructions of the elf.
So the one inside were given a signal to leave?
Yes, you think so.
The one outside was following?
Yes.
So it's reacting, okay. Interesting. They look like
Go on.
wizardy folk or fighter folk.
You couldn't see anything that to you would identify. You would recognise them again, but you didn't see anything on them that would identify a skill set.
But there wasn't like an obvious weapon or anything like that?
No.
Interesting.
So, Cecile will suggest that you all kind of regroup on the sofas.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You can do that.
And then she will say, where is Mr. Victus? He went into the bathrooms. I do rather hope that he didn't have any of the seafood. It's not the most sanitary around here.
Alec lands. Does Cecile have a drink?
Yes.
I'll go do this.
Alec lands on like the edge of the cup. That's true as a fly starts drinking from it.
Okay.
And then he does that thing that flies do where they rub their hands together like they're plotting your death.
Okay. Make a dexterity saving throw.
Oh dear.
As Cecile brings a knife right the way down, towards you.
What's the dexterity of a fly, Dan?
Let's go with +3.
Okay.
And with advantage.
14.
14.
Do I have advantage?
You do not have advantage.
Well, so flies have a higher refresh rate of their eyes, which is why they're so good at dodging things.
Okay, but he's not used to being a fly.
But you'd still see them
used to having eyes.
Yeah, he's also not used to sight. So, unfortunately, that is not enough for you to be spared the brunt of Cecile's dagger, which comes right the way, like halfway into your body. And then you revert, you lose 1 hit point, and you revert into your normal form.
Are you telling me Alec just appears on the table in like a heap?
Yes.
Friends are more than capable of hearing that on their own. But for Génie's sake, and then Hal will just explain everything.
Oh, well,
but,
Silshard as well.
Oh, of course, yeah, as well. Yeah, so Hal will explain everything for both of their benefits.
Did Cassius come with us?
No.
We should have leave Silshard unattended for the entire thing. That could have... Yeah.
I was there. Génie was there. Génie can look after Silshard.
Génie was doing a thing, you know.
Silshard
Anyway.
was just eating...
Silshard is currently making his way through a plate of pastries.
Motherfucker has been eating the breakfast the entire time, missing this entire sequence.
Several hours
He put on
passed since...
Put on a stone.
No, he doesn't seem to be gaining any weight.
Oh, I hate
feel
this
like
person.
Silshard exists within this kind of like weird space of demon nature and like human nature. They're very much a demon in a human body.
I'm imagining Elle from Death Note, like just constantly eating sweets, but still very, very skinny.
Yeah, it's probably a very similar vibe, actually, now you mention it. Though, for the love of God, Silshard has to keep their shoes on, please. I know that Elf definitely is always barefoot for some horrific reason. Anyway.
Okay, Silshard takes his shoes off.
Stop.
So you catch Silshard up on everything, and Génie, and Génie, you can catch up your friends on what you saw. Excuse me, it's been a long day. And what would you like to do?
Do I recognise the Library of Terrachmus as a name?
Make for me, please, a history check.
Toes out for Silshard.
Don't say it. Now it's immortalized, Alistair. You said it out loud. Now it's on the video.
Can we ban Alistair?
Yeah, actually.
27 history check.
You do know about this. And I will tell you about it once I remember how to spell it. There we are. So, you know the following.
How is it spelled, incidentally?
It is spelled TARCHA.
CHA.
Yeah, so TARCHAMUS. Terrachmus. I think it might be supposed to be. But we're saying Terrachmus. Because Terrachmus. Yeah, we're going to go with that.
You don't have to say things the way they're spelled.
No, this is true.
It's okay.
It's all made up words anyway.
Yeah. So, Terrachmus the Unyielding was a legendary Netherese arcanist who lived around the mid-4th millennium pre-Dale Reckoning. He was so powerful that he was able to directly harness the power of other planes. He famously created a spell that is now lost called Terrachmus's Volcano. You would know that just as someone who enjoys inventing spells. You know that he created he managed to create a volcano by opening a gate to Phlegethos and to bring the power for the volcano through, and managed to destroy one of the Netherese cities. After the destruction of that city, you would know with that check that you made that a group of Terrachmus's friends believed that he'd grown too powerful and staged an intervention and tried to cut off Terrachmus's access to the weave. When he lost his magical abilities, he created a library somewhere on Faerun in which he housed all of his magical secrets. It is believed that he transferred most of his consciousness into a magical book, the Book of Terrachmus. At some point, everything then went quiet until a little while ago, 1478 DR. So that's just over 10 years previous, from about 15 years ago.
I think it's 20 years?
Yes, roughly. I think you're in 1497, so 19 years. So 19 years ago.
How old's Hal?
So 19 years ago.
Hal's currently 20, so...
Okay.
19 years ago, Alec, you are aware of the fact that a spell comparable to Terrachmus's Lost Volcano spell was cast somewhere north of somewhere not too far, to the south of Cormyr, and it caused a volcano to explode. And people speculated for a while that maybe the spell had been recovered or found somewhere, somehow, some way. But that's pretty much everything.
And how long ago did Rhaedra Orbiskia become queen?
Asking the important questions. Rhaedra Orbiskia became queen. It's a very good job that there's background music for the people who are watching the stream, so they're not just watching me try to remember things. Information that I should have either at the front of my mind or, in my memory.
As a fellow DM, it's just not possible.
I have written down 1486.
That sounds about right.
Although I've got that written down as 10 years ago, so
We're either in 1496 or 1497.
We've messed with the timeline enough that at this point we barely know what day it is.
Yeah,
frankly.
no. So we're in 14. We're playing in 1497. 1486 is when she became queen. And then the event that killed. The event that had the volcano-y thing was 10 years prior to that. So
just to chip in, the finance sheet says 1498.
Ignore the finance sheet.
Yes, because by the way, we have a finance sheet.
It really doesn't matter because it's only for for purposes of internal continuity at this point because it's roughly a decade. It really doesn't matter in that sense, and I have a lot to keep track of, and I'm sorry.
You're doing so well.
I'm going to underline 1497 in my notes.
It's 1498. If the finance sheet says it's 1498, then it's definitely... I tell you what, you can go on the website and have a look at all of the recaps that we've been posting for each session because they are dated. There.
Plug the website, yeah, do it.
Why do I...
Alec can remember everything that happened in the last 30 days, but he cannot remember what year it is.
Yeah. Because you've not looked at it in the last 30
Hang on,
days.
they say 2022.
Alec is the living embodiment of having ADHD. Except he's not living.
The website says 1497.
Doesn't matter, it doesn't matter.
I'll update the finance
I've just
sheet.
corrected my notes.
1497. 10 years ago, thereabouts, Rhaedra became queen. 10 years before that was this particular thing to do with the volcano.
Okay. Glad we've established that. Did she become queen immediately after her brother died, or was there like a delayed period?
It was more or less instant. So her brother was injured in battle, and she became regent, and then her brother recovered briefly, so he was king, and then he died, and then she became queen. Kind of. There was no kind of, it was discussed at the time whether there was anything foul play related, but he was really ill. He'd suffered many war wounds and resulting infections, and just was never able to quite shake the worst of it, and died a year or so after he recovered. So she's kind of been queen for about 13 years, but was coronated 10 years ago. But the time that she spent in the regency kind of, was in that time.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like... that.
I love when Alex just gets like an absolute nuclear amount of lore out of Dan with a 27 on the history check.
Well, I can't roll lower than an 11.
Okay.
Alec knows all things. He's a smart boy.
Well, I mean, Alec knows that, the rest of us don't, so...
And Oriyana, so that was from them talking about the library thing. And Oriyana, you would recognise the description of what you heard about what they're interested in as being, information that you know.
Interesting. What were you going to say?
I did have a thought, actually. What was the name of the order that they mentioned?
It was the Azure Keepers, I believe.
Azure Keepers. Is that with a
Do
Z
I
or an S?
recognise that
On Keepers,
name?
an S. On Azure, it's a Z,
Thank
but it's.
Z
Do
on
you recognise
Keepers.
that name? You can make another history check.
22.
The Azure Keepers were a guild of wizards similar to the Watchful Order of Mages and Protectors, but that operated in this part of the world around 100 years ago. Shortly thereafter, the Order kind of stopped recruiting. Not for any particular reason other than people were more attracted to travel a bit further to the Watchful Order, and there wasn't as much need for a dedicated group of wizards locally. So about 70 years ago, they kind of cut off recruiting. So the fact that there are people now, belonging to that order again is news to you.
I don't know how much of this is me putting together information that I've learned, but Alec does know all this information. Something is going on in Alec's brain about Azure is a shade of blue, if I'm not much mistaken.
Yeah.
This is going to be Ethereum half, isn't it?
I know a wizard who might have died a little over 70 years ago with blue robes.
Is your theory Azure is like a shade of blue? We know someone who once wore the colour blue like 70 years ago. They're related.
Yeah, I mean, that's not that... Like, I'm not saying anything by that. It's like... There's two statements of fact that could be connected.
You're not wrong. You are correct. Yeah.
But again, I don't know how much of that is Miles knowing that Dan asked Tony to make a charisma saving throw upon hearing the name.
No, that's metagaming.
Exactly, but Alec has a photographic memory and has been thinking all day about that wizard he saw wearing blue robes. I don't know.
Were you going to say the fit wizard then?
Well, yeah, Sam is the hottest wizard in the world.
You said the fit and then stopped yourself. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the scale of hot wizards is, Alec with his charisma 11 and Sam with his clear charisma 20, so...
Right, well, given the information we now have from that...
What do we do with that information?
Well, because obviously now, if we're going to go and find this library, obviously the question becomes, what are we going to find there? We know that the Queen Raedra is looking for this library because it was of interest to her missing fiancé and dead brother, so that could very easily be motivated by a genuine curiosity into two lost people's interest. That feels fairly not malicious in my mind.
Well, do we need to find the library, or do we just need to stop the Queen from finding the library?
Well, they're gonna pay us, what was it? How much? 1,000 platinum?
Yeah, which is 10,000 gold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't lie, there's a big part of me that wants 10,000 gold.
But is there a part of you that doesn't want whatever the result of that is? Just because they're paying you doesn't mean that the end game is a good thing.
Well, the way I see it, and Hal will turn to obviously address the entire party and say, as I was talking to Génie about earlier, I feel as if, well, we need to find out what the memory is inside of these King's Tears. And obviously we know that it has something to do with this library now. I feel like it may be the best result for us to go play along, go find this library. We'll be the first people there to find out what information is available in this library. And from there we can either, A, if it's harmless, get paid 1,000 platinum. And great, no harm done. If it's information that could be dangerous or could be, well, evil, then we stop it because we're there and we are the first to find out. We just don't tell Raedra and go from there. one way or another, I feel like going to this library, or at least trying to find it, might be the best way to handle it. If anything, if the information in the King's Tiers is about this library, and we were umming and ahhing about what information could be in the King's Tiers, well, cut out the middleman, go to the library right away.
See, the thing is, we don't know what kind of person the Queen is. It's something that her brother was looking into anyway. We don't know what kind of person he was. This library has information from a wizard that liked to do things with other planes. And had quite catastrophic spells given the volcano. I don't particularly feel comfortable giving that kind of information to somebody that we do not know. We don't know the kind of character that they are.
Well, Cecile, you agreed to take us to the palace, didn't you?
Yes,
go and...
in 2 hours. Well, little over an hour and a half now.
Well, I say we go and find out. Worst comes to worst, we accept the job and just never come back. Or we accept the job, find the library, decide that it's absolutely horrible, and we tell Ranger we never found the library.
I think at the very least we accept half payment first, as a down payment.
That's a great idea, because then if we don't come back, we still get 5,000 gold out of it.
That seems morally dubious. I love it.
Well, if
I will.
we still attempt to do it, but we do not find it.
I will say, Waterdeep doesn't have the best diplomatic relationship with Cormyr. This might be an opportunity for us to change that.
To do sour it further.
I meant the other thing, but possibly.
Hang on.
But
what's more likely? You building trust between Cormyr and Waterdeep, or you destroying trust between Cormyr and Waterdeep?
I think when we meet with Queen Rager, we have to establish, without being too obvious, we do not represent Waterdeep. We represent a few dickheads who want to get paid.
Wait, no. We do represent we personally represent Lord Ranulf Ilvaster. He chose us himself because he trusts us and has all our values, and then we scam her out of the money and leave.
But aren't they maybe friends? We heard that they might know each other.
Yeah.
We can change that.
What if we just... Hal has like a moment of a really cruel but giddy expression crosses his face and says, what if we just shit talk Lord Ilvaster? What if we just go in and say, yeah, I heard Lord Ilvaster said that, I don't know, said that you're a terrible leader or something like that. Though actually, the more I think about it, the more that sounds like, when Laurel Silverhand explicitly asked us not to start a war with Cormyr.
Yeah.
I have a question. This queen is queen of the country, right?
Yep.
Of Cormyr.
Yep.
Is Ralph, or whatever his name is, king of
He's Open Lord of Waterdeep, which is kind of like head of government of Waterdeep. But because of
the area of Waterdeep.
Yes.
Not just the city. Okay.
The area around it. But because of the power that Waterdeep has, he's kind of the most powerful person on the Sword Coast.
Cool.
Look, well, I mean, put it this way. At the very least, we should go meet the Queen, right? Mm-hmm. If we meet the Queen and she's very clearly up to no good, well, then great. I also think it might be a good opportunity to... And Hal's going to turn to Oriyana, and maybe even Cecile, I imagine they're stood similar, together, and say, this also might be a really good opportunity for, I don't know, one of our numbers to, I don't know, slip off to the bathroom and maybe go through Queen Raedra's documents and maybe find out exactly what her connection to Lord Ilvaster is. Or we're there via invite.
Potentially. But, again, I remind you, I'm not a thief by trade. I could potentially do it, but it's not my specialty.
I mean, what do we
Tell
think?
that to Hal's uncle's silverware.
Don't forget the statue.
The statue that had the secret button underneath that led to Hal's uncle's super secret evil lair, his evil bat cave that he has.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Right, I'm just doing some quick maths because I'm increasingly more aware that some of those dates were wrong, and that was what was confusing me. So I'm doing a quick bit of mental maths just to figure out the correct dates for things. So keep having in-character discussions, and every so often Silshard will just kind of contribute something vaguely amusing, but that also embarrasses Hal.
Wonderful, as per then. Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to put anyone in a position where they have to, endanger themselves, but if we see the opportunity, I don't see why we wouldn't take it. At best, they just know each other. At worst, they're plotting, I don't know, world domination or something. As I discussed with Silshard the other evening, I do think there's a chance we may be seeing this to be worse than what it is, but I think given our resume, shall we say, I feel we have almost a responsibility to Faerun to at least know, to at least find out, just in case. Just in case. And Hal will look kind of like a little bit uneasy and kind of like anxious about saying it like that, as if becoming aware of how almost paranoid he sounds.
I think the thing we have to be very careful about is that we don't end up handing the keys of destruction to anyone. Like, that is not something I want on my conscience. If we find that this library or this book holds the keys of mass destruction or has a spell that can eliminate continents of people or cities of people, that is something we have a duty to destroy. Like, that is not something that can get out.
Don't worry. The last time Howl and I went to recover a powerful Netherese artifact, we did more damage to the space-time continuum than any single group of human or humanoids have ever done.
We do our jobs very well.
Hypothetically, say we got the King's Tier that has information on where to find this library. Would it be worth asking the Queen why she wants this information if we can figure out why? Would we want to destroy it, the knowledge that we have, or use it?
I think maybe given the way Cecile has described us to, what was it, Mr.
Fagon?
Fagon, Mr. Adlevo. Yeah, that fellow. Given the way that Cecile described us and given our apparent notoriety, I mean, I'd say we play into it. I say we go in there being as least our anxious selves as we can, and, well, say we won't do it unless we find out why. Say, look, we saved Faerun, we will find out why, and if you tell us, then we will go. Tell her she'll have the best adventurers in Faerun at her disposal. Maybe we even say, okay, well, if you tell us why and we agree with what your goals are, maybe, I don't know, we could probably knock something off the price or something like that, or maybe we'll pledge to help Cormyr in a time of need or something like that. Frankly, it doesn't matter as long as we find out, right?
The risk is, if we lead with the we're heroes of the world angle, if she is planning destruction on a scale hitherto undreamt of, then she's not exactly going to tell us. And on the counterpoint, if she isn't, and she tells us, no, it's totally innocent, I just want to know what my brother and my fiancé/ex-fiancé were looking for, are we even going to believe her? I think we have to just play this one by ear and try and figure out if she's lying?
So, some dates for you now that I've worked it out. The current year is 1497. In 1487, Rhaedra became queen.
So 10 years ago.
In 1483, the queen's elder brother, the king, went off to war and returned.
5 years.
Sorry?
5 years between.
4 years between. 87 to 83.
Sorry.
In 1486, the king returns to Cormyr and doesn't leave again, and he's dead before the end of 1487. Yes, so that's that. And if I have at any point, because I seem to have it in my mind that I have, but it might not have actually been a conversation that we've had in character, and it might have not even been a conversation with any of you. It might have been with the my friend that I run most of my plot stuff by. If I have at any point mentioned Oberyn Crownsilver going missing, he went missing 3 years ago in 1494. That was what was confusing me, as the recentness or otherwise of Oberyn going missing, but he has been missing for 3 years at this point.
He had mentioned he'd gone missing to us.
Cool. So just if you're interested in ages, the Queen at present is 34, was 24 when she became Queen. The king, when he went off to war, was 35. So just to give you some dates, I'm now fully justified. My mathematics works, and that's now fortunately recorded and on the internet, so I can refer back to it in the future.
Now we know.
And the spell, similar to the Terachmus's volcano, was 19 years ago.
Yes, that was in the 70s, in the late 70s.
Yes.
Okay, well, let's at least agree, before we go and meet the Queen, let's agree on a game plan at least. If we get the opportunity, let's find out as much as we can. If we get a distinct vibe from her of ill intent or even good intent, we'll go from there. Well, the only thing I can think of is when we get there, she's going to want to know if we're going to go and find this library or not. I think either way we have to agree, even if later on we say, oops, sorry, couldn't find it. Just because if we then leave and find out this library is full of, I don't know, the worst stuff ever, then we can leave then. Do we agree that that's probably at least a game plan for now? Even if we don't end up going to the library.
Cecile thinks that's a good idea.
Didn't Thurgon say that she was looking for someone to escort her to the library?
She did.
So
that suggests that she knows that the information of where to find it will be in one of these tiers.
I'm not sure that's quite what's happened. I think it's like if information is in King's tier, Queen need adventurer to escort. If information not in King's tier,
get more.
No
King's
adventurer. Find more King's tier. Profit ?
I mean, either way, I feel like we could work with that. Either way, if we play along, we'll find out the truth. And fact of the matter is, I still really think it'd be a good idea to try and ask her about Lord Ilvaster, if we can pretend to like him for, I don't know, 10 minutes, which I know is challenging.
I have a thought.
Do you want me throwing up on the floor of the Palace of Cormyr? Because that is how that happens.
What's Genie's thought?
Well, I'm not sure if you mentioned it before, but the gems that are used to make the King's tier, are they particularly rare, or are they...
There are only 6 known in existence, and you have 3 of them.
So it's not like we could find another gem and make another King's tier?
No.
And pretend that it's got the information of their whereabouts of it.
They are harvested from a particular place called Starmount, which is not on this plane of existence.
Good.
If Dan gives me about 200,000 more experience, I can level up to level 17, copy the Scroll of Wish I have into my spellbook, and then I can wish for King's Tears.
Well, until that happy day when all our problems can be wished away, let's wish a little bit of time away and progress on to your arrival at the palace. Do any of you do anything different to prepare to arrive at a palace? You've met, like, the Open Lord of Waterdeep. You know, you've been to formals and galas. I don't think any of you have met actual royalty before.
We met Strahd. He counts, right?
Strahd totally counts.
He is a count, in fact.
Yeah.
But he also wanted you either alive or dead, depending which one of you were.
We wore armour at the time.
Yeah. What does anything about your disposition change? Do you want to? Is anything going through your minds as you're meeting, as you're meeting royalty, or getting ready to?
Oriyana would probably try and tidy herself up a little bit, just ever conscious that this is royalty that we're going to see. But she's also going as an adventurer, so she'd keep any typical stuff that she'd wear, but try and make it look a little bit nicer and cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Génie would probably do the same. He'd probably stow his shield and have his warhammer by his side, but not be carrying it in the ways that he normally would.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe just try and give them a bit of elbow grease, make them shine.
Yeah. Do you have the prestidigitation cantrip?
I think I do.
You can use that to make things shine. Whether you choose to or not, and you may wish to use regular elbow grease, that is perfectly acceptable.
I will, for most things, use use the spell, and then for just a sort of a nervous tick in a way, use elbow grease on the hammer.
Okay.
Put my beard in a plait with some bows, slick my hair back.
Nice.
Anything from Howl and Alec?
I mean, Howl will probably be going dressed as he is. He'll make a very minor amount of effort, but Howl's not keen on the idea of showing some sort of fealty to a big, noble, royal character. Howl was never particularly comfortable with his own societal standing. He only really likes Laurel because Laurel's nice, and Laurel's our friend. So Howl will very much be hands in pockets, glaring at most of the guards, and kind of moodily walking through in that way that Howl would.
Alec has been very distracted today trying to come up with this spell. And as a result, when he was getting ready this morning, he even forgot to brush his hair, so he looks like he spent the last week sleeping outdoors in the rain.
Cool.
He looks literally homeless.
And
can I comb his hair with prestidigitation?
You can. And if he's still
engrossed in Alec's hair as we go.
And if he's still engrossed in his spellbook, he might not even notice.
Oh yeah, Alec doesn't notice. He's just still writing. No, it probably doesn't have a gold cost associated with it.
Make another Arcana check.
Ooh, that's not very good. Soft 20.
You know that the likely duration of this spell will be up to 10 minutes concentration.
My session notes are going to be great because every other paragraph will be just a random note about a spell. Much like Alec's notes.
You arrive at the palace. The palace of Queen Raedra Orbrisker in Suzail is a grand white stone building that stands on a small cliff that overlooks the docks, not dissimilar to Waterdeep. Its round stone towers, cylindrical towers, are capped with fairy tale spires of blue slate, each topped with a flag bearing the emblem of Suzail and of Cormyr. There is a drawbridge leading across a small chasm that is lowered, and people are crossing, that leads you into the courtyard. From the courtyard, you are shown through a magnificent set of doors into a large reception room. This large reception room is filled with nobles and petitioners. There are people wearing those blue robes that you saw wandering about in the streets. There are other people wearing the green robes similar to your elven friend. There are many courtiers, guards, as I say, nobles, military, all milling about this space, this very large space. It is about 50 feet wide by maybe 100 feet long. It's a very, very long, wide room. There is at the far end a dais with a throne and a set of a set of chairs arranged in a hemisphere around the throne, which gives the impression of sort of like a council area, somewhere that decisions would be taken, people would meet. In the centre of the room proper is a large round table. That there are chairs dotted around this table, and the table is covered in papers and bits of scrolls, parchment. Milling around the table are clerks wandering around with quills, scribbling on bits of parchment and paper. Sat in a chair is a woman in her mid-30s. She has long auburn hair that goes down to the middle of her back. She's wearing a purple, an elegant purple robe that even in this it's midsummer-ish at this point. That even in the summer heat, there is some fur trim along the shoulders and sleeves of this this elegant dress. And robe. The purple is a very vivid purple, a very fine purple that you associate with nobility. It also matches the colour of the emblem of Suzail and Cormyr that has been flying from the castle spires. Around her neck, she's wearing a gold locket in the shape of the locket itself is quite small and fits just between her clavicle, and it has a small heart as the locket on this gold chain around her neck. She wears a number of rings on her hand, particularly one on her right ring finger, which is where you wear rings that signify your office, and on that finger she's wearing a gold ring with a large purple gemstone set into it. You see that there are other courtiers that all have rings on that right ring finger, but none are anywhere near as grand as hers. And you think that gemstone could probably double up as like a signet ring. You could seal things with it, stamp things with it. She is flanked by two individuals, elven individuals, a man and a woman. One of them is the elf that visited the bar earlier. That visited the hidden lady earlier that day, and he is handing her bits of paper that she is kind of signing and pointing to things on paper and explaining things and answering questions. The woman on the other side is stood surveying the crowds that are assembling, kind of dotted around spaces in the room. She notices you all approaching, leans into the queen sat at the table, and whispers something, and the queen kind of just looks up and looks around, and eyes lock onto you six, and kind of says, "My goodness, we are indeed in the company of great adventurers." And as she stands, everyone else stops moving, and everyone kind of like turns inward and looks at her and looks at you. And the Queen says to you, "Am I right in thinking that you must be Agent Génie, Oriyana Aldriel, Alec Victus, and Hal Blackwood?"
Would they know me as Agent Génie, or would I just be Génie?
What else are you known by?
There's been like a miscommunication. People think your first legal name is Agent.
Hal's gonna like through kind of like in that hushed tone through gritted teeth turn to the party in one fluid motion before turning to the Queen and say, "Time to turn on the charm, I think." And Hal very like anxiously will then turn around and do his best to look confident and say, "Believe me, my lady, the pleasure is all ours, though your recognition is noted."
The Thargon, who was there earlier, says on his emotionless face, "The correct form of address for the Queen is Your Majesty, not my lady."
"Oh, well, my deepest apologies. I didn't mean any disrespect."
No disrespect was taken, no offence at all. Thargon, don't worry.
No. Please, allow me to show my respect. And Hal, again, he's going to turn to the party looking like... Hal's going to try and approach towards the Queen.
Okay.
And Hal will, like, get down on one knee and do, like a proper full-on bow.
Yeah.
And say, "Allow me to rephrase. It's a pleasure, Your Majesty." Try and roll anything for some benefits here, Dad. I really like it on Finnish.
You can roll a charisma persuasion check.
Cool. We're trying to earn big points. That's a 22.
Okay. She smiles at you and holds out her hand with the ring.
Oh my god. Somebody's trying to get into my room, what the hell? Howl will Howl will grimace towards the ground.
Yeah.
And then take the hand and will kiss the ring and say, "Finery fitting for a queen." And then we'll back away a little bit.
Okay.
Howl is internally losing his goddamn mind. He is absolutely shitting it, as it were. But obviously he's trying to play up the... Listen, he's got 20 charisma.
She says, "I am honoured by your presence here. May I introduce to you my court?" And she just like gestures vaguely in everybody's general direction, and she says, "And of course, this is my principal courtier, whose name has already slipped my mind. His name, what was he called?"
Thagon
Adlevo.
My principal courtier, Thagon Adlevo, here, and Lady Illystria, who is my chief lady in waiting." And they will kind of both bow in greeting, kind of uniformly, automatically at the same time, very practiced, very polished, for the same duration, and and they sort of look at you, and she says, "And you have brought with you some friends, it seems. May I call you Howl?"
Howl will rise from his bowing position.
Oh, she will gesture. Sorry, if you haven't already, she will gesture for you to stand up.
Howl will stand and say, "Well, if I can accept such a great honour, then yes, of course, that would be my pleasure. I would love you to." And yes.
Who are these individuals that join you today?
Howl will clear his throat and say, "Well, my friends and indeed my trusted allies are, as you know, Agent Génie, one of the most accomplished tacticians and deft leaders I have ever had the pleasure of working with.
Bonjour, Votre Majesty. It is a pleasure to meet you on this fine day."
Enchanté.
Also, I'm willing to bet he could outcook any of your castle chefs. I would love you to take that challenge." And I look at Génie like, "Please don't hate me for that."
Do you like the taste of garlic, by any chance?
Yes, I do, rather.
It is one of my specialities. I will have to... it is so simple, but garlic bread, it's perfect.
Hal then gesture to Oriyana and say, "And Oriyana Aldriel, a ladrin of talents that can only be described, well, they can't be described. You'll have to see for yourself. One of the most talented and, indeed, effective combatants I've ever known. A very unique skill set. And then Hal turned to Alec. As the more Hal goes on, the more he's like, oh god, what have I done? Hal then turned to Alec and say, and Alec Victus, one of my closest companions and confidants, and dare I say the smartest individual on the face of Faerun. Again,
there's a collective intake of
challenge
breath from some of the courtiers. Various of the courtiers, whilst you're describing these figures, have kind of like the courtiers that are attracted to men have kind of been swooning a little bit at Génie and Alec, and that are attracted to women swooning at Oriyana. So you heard a mutter that where you used the word effective, someone in the crowd used the word attractive.
Cool. Hal's then going to turn to Cecile and say, I'm not aware whether or not you are acquainted with...
Sue Dubois.
Sue Dubois. But yet again, a relatively new companion of mine, but nevertheless an incredibly talented one, and one I hope I will continue to work with under pleasant terms. And Hal will turn almost pleadingly towards Sue.
It was Cecile that shouted the name.
Yeah, I thought so.
And she will turn look at you and wink at you, and say, and will kind of like murmur, "You're doing very well indeed. Please don't describe Sylvester as a demon."
Hal will kind of be like, "Shut up," like give like a very quiet. Obviously, I imagine it's quite a distance in this big hall. Hal will then turn to Sylvester and be like, and this is Sylvester, my
twin brother,
whom had been away for a while, on a journey of self-discovery, shall we say, a gap year, maybe even.
To the Moonshine Isles. He seems very nervous, and he's just yelling things.
I pat him on the shoulder. You're doing great, bud.
They are they're coming with us on experience and to accompany me, and it's been a long time since we've been together, so it's always nice to spend some time with family, as I'm sure you'll agree. And Hal says that knowing damn well that he's prying about into a very emotional thing. Hal's trying to kind of play that kind of heartstring element.
The Queen says, "It's absolutely wonderful to meet all of you. Why don't we adjourn to one of my meeting halls, and we'll converse more properly about why it is that you have come here. But I'm so utterly delighted to meet you. Your adventures, the defeat of the Consensus and of Tartarus, and go on."
The mention of Tartarus by name is enough to make Howl's complete facade that he's doing right now waver just a little bit in a way that perhaps the party would definitely recognise as Howl wavering, but maybe not a stranger, I don't know. But he falters for a moment, and his like really fake grin and debonaireness that he's trying to pull off right now just wavers a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Goes weak at the knees.
And she will kind of like lead you, she will have her courtiers kind of like lead you as a group off to one side, and she keeps talking and says things like, "Is it really true that all of that there were multiple Tartaruses that kept diverging from one another on the battlefield? And is it also the case that several members of the Consensus were, it turned out, rather senior members of Faerunian society? And is it also true that you can travel through time?"
Howl?
That's false advertising.
It's fake news.
You gotta sell it a little bit, but no, time travel is categorically impossible.
Make a charisma deception check.
Yeah.
Alex telling a fib. Alex, you basically invented time travel.
Actually, Alec just cribbed off more. Oh god, what's my deception bonus? Of course it's +0. 19.
Okay.
You're rolling so well.
You are led into this side room, and she's continued to talk and ask questions and hasn't really given you the opportunity to reply to any beyond the one about time travel. And then she will say, but yes, enough of the remembrance of things past. Let's talk about the present and indeed the future. And now, I am given to understand from Lord Adlevo that you, and he turns to Cecile and says, have on your possession 3 items that I have asked you to acquire for me. Yes, indeed, I do. Here are 2 of them. And she will just produce from her armour 2 small packets of fabric and puts them on a table. It says, and the third? And she will gesture to Oriyana.
Why is she gesturing to me?
The king's tear.
Oriyana will retrieve the king's tear and place it on the table.
Okay. Wonderful, says the queen. And it is in one of these gems that I will find the information that I'm so desperately searching for. Well, we can't know that for sure. You see, none of us can tell what is in the king's tears, and it may only be in the shattering of them that you discover, Your Majesty, that it's not quite all of the information that you were hoping for. It must be said that there are 2 additional king's tears elsewhere. Oh, 2? Yes, I purchased 1. And she will pull out another one and put these packets of fabric containing king's tears on the table and says, 2 remain. I believe one of them is in the Neverwinter Museum and another with a private collector. Yes, indeed, that's quite true. So we have the option of retrieving them should we wish to. Yes, certainly. I am very much at your service. Miles.
Do I believe if I were to cast Identify on the king's tears, that would tell me what was inside them?
Make an Arcana check.
Also, I want to say...
28.
If the queen goes to pick up a king's tear as if to try and break it, Hal wants to put his hand over the king's tear before that happens.
With a 28, no, you don't believe an Identify spell would be enough, because the magical property of this gem is that it contains information. That is what an Identify spell would tell you. It wouldn't tell you the precise properties of it, because it's not a magic item in the same way. It is an item with magical properties, but not a magic item.
What about Detect Thoughts? Would that work?
You would have to cast it, but it could.
Ooh.
That's kind of spicy.
I may be able to try something, Your Majesty.
Oh.
Well, I don't know if it'll work, but in theory, casting Detect Thoughts on the gems might tell me what's inside them.
Well, if that is the case, and she will just gesture towards the tears.
Okay.
If you'll forgive me, Mr. Victus, I won't tell you what information it is I'm looking for at this present juncture. If you could tell me what is contained within them, I will then know whether the information I need is there.
That sounds reasonable. I'll take the one that Oriyana put down, and attempt to cast Detect Thoughts.
With you expend a spell slot for Detect Thoughts. This gem contains information concerning a lost library that is believed to have been the library of a great wizard.
Why has nobody tried Detect Thoughts before? That's amazing.
I'll kind of... And then take a second one.
Mm-hmm.
Try Detect Thoughts on that.
Okay. This one contains a sequence of memories relating to an invasion by mind flayers of part of Cormyr several hundred years ago.
Oh shit.
Okay.
Mind flares.
Put that one down.
Okay.
I'll take the third one.
This one contains an ancient family recipe for banana bread.
Love it.
Yes.
Okay, I'll put that
Yes.
one down, and I've ordered them in terms of relevance. And I look at the rest of the group and try to imply with just my facial expression.
Why don't we use telepathic bond? Continue.
Reminded me that I have. Why are you going to remind me what my spells are? Why can't I remember what they are? Yeah. Are we going to tell her?
You've got one more.
Oh, there are 4 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take the 4th one and.
The 4th
Detect
one
thoughts.
contains information pertaining to the location of a moonbow.
A moonbow.
Moonbow.
You, Alec, would know what a moonbow is, which is that it is,
Yes.
along with moon swords, they are weapons that can only be wielded by those who are destined to have authority over the elves. If you can wield a moon sword or a moon bow, it's kind of an automatic claim to very senior status within elfdom. If you aren't able to wield it when you pick it up, you die.
Oh, good.
I look at Oriyana when hearing the destined to rule elves, and then think, why would Oriyana be destined to rule the elves? And I look down at the 3 of them I've laid out, and then I move the, Cormyr invasion one closer to the library one, put the moonbow down, so they're still in order of relevance. And then I look at the others, are we going to tell her the truth about what's inside these?
Given how well we know Alec, how well would Hal be able to read that expression from Alec's face?
Pretty
Yeah,
easily. You've known each other for several hundred years.
Yeah. Cool.
We went together for several hundred of those, but still.
Oriyana will give Alec a look of just like, I already know what's in the one that I had.
It's absolutely a game of expressions. We're just looking at each other like.
I feel like Genie's gonna respond in the same way as sort of no. Feign ignorance.
Howl is going to clear his throat and look very somberly at Raedra and will say, Your Majesty, I know that you said that you wouldn't want to tell us what information you were looking for until you knew whether it was here or not. And I understand that. I've heard a little about your struggles and the things that may be motivating you. And I want you to know that we empathize. I also want you to know and understand that, as you know, we are the heroes that saved Faerun, perhaps more than you know. I would ask you to, if you can, place a little trust in us and at least give us some inclination of your intentions. I only ask this because, well, I want to believe that you're a good person and that your goals wouldn't harm others.
Make a charisma persuasion check while you're doing this. Carry on, but make a persuasion check.
Yeah. Hal will say, I too am very aware of how it feels to lose people. And Hal's going to look between everyone else in the room, including Silshard, and maybe even in particular Silshard, and will say, I've nearly lost some of the people dearest to me on many, many occasions. It can motivate you quite powerfully, but not always rationally. I rolled a 21 on that persuasion check.
Okay. She says, No, you're quite right. I should trust you. If I'm going to ask you to undertake any particular danger, and I know that I can trust you. I believe that I can trust you. And she's holding the locket on her neck at this point. She says, it's about Bryn. my fiancé, Oberyn Crownsilver, he was an adventurer and grew up hearing... he was a friend of the family, so when my elder brother, the late king, went off on adventures, he would come back and tell Bryn and I of his adventures. When he went off to war, it hit Bryn quite hard to lose a very close friend. And when my brother returned from war, he was never quite the same, but he imparted to Bryn a good number of stories. Bryn continued to go adventuring, and 3 years ago he believed that he had found some tell of something that my brother was always obsessed with, the library of this lost library of Trachmatus. And I'm aware of what sort of a person he was, this ancient wizard, and the powers that he dealt with. So was Bryn. And I choose to trust that Bryn knew what he was getting himself into. He was an experienced adventurer, and if he was still here, he would be who I would want taking me on every adventure.
Can I make an insight check? I want to see how sincere I think she's being.
Sure.
I'd like to insight check her as well.
Yeah.
I also want
Okay.
insight check.
Can Oriyana do so, and can I also argue advantage because of the similarities?
You can.
The gang be checking vibes. I got a 5, so I probably
Okay.
can't gauge it.
22.
Okay. Génie?
I mean, if I turn upside down, it's a 1. So, 9.
Okay.
53.
Okay. Oriyana and Alec, you are convinced of her sincerity. Oriyana, you think that she just really wants to know what her fiancé was so interested in, and or be able to find him again. Because she says, as she continues to exposit, she says, Bryn told me that he thought he knew where this library was when he disappeared 3 years ago. And I want to know what happened to him. I want to find him. And the only piece of information I have, the only clue as to what happened to the love of my life is this library. And I know that asking someone to acquire gems containing information might not be the most ethical way of finding out what happened, but the truth is I really need to know, and I will go to any length to find out what happened to Bryn. Please, if information about this library is contained in these gems, tell me. And if it is, let's go there together. I'm not interested in what's inside. I just want to find him.
Hearing this, Oriyana will have been just like unconsciously subconsciously just fiddling with the rings on a necklace. And she will look at the Queen and say, Your Majesty, I understand exactly what you are going through. If I was able to find out what happened to someone that I loved and lost, I would also do everything in my power to find out what happened. And Oriyana will just immediately reach for the one that she handed over and slide it forwards from all the rest of them. This is the one that contains information on the library. If there is anything we can do to help, we will do it.
Howl's going to turn to Oriyana, and obviously...
That's where we stop.
Cool.
That's where we stop for this week. Well, there we are. That was our fifth instalment, Remembrance of Things Past.
I have much to think about.
Yes, much to think about, many feelings.
Yeah, I'm like, I have a few ideas and plans about what to say to Raedra after this now. But obviously that can come next time. But yeah, that was a good session, Dan. I have many things to think about now.
Good. I like leaving you with things to ponder. We've got 2 weeks in which to ponder them. Our next game is scheduled for 2 weeks today. That's Monday the 30th. Sorry, no, it's not. That's 1 week today. Monday the 6th.
I'm
Monday
playing
the 6th.
another D&D game then.
Monday the 6th of June at 7 o'clock on twitch.tv/TheAglarion. To keep up with everything that we are doing, please do check out our website, theaglarion.co.uk. What's my website?
Dad,
It had up 20 seconds ago.
.com.
Thank you. Let me try that again. To keep up with everything that we're doing, you can check out the website, TheAglarion.com, and we are at TheAglarion on Twitch and on YouTube, and so on Twitter and on YouTube, where all of our other content is posted. On the website, The Aglarion, if you're interested in this, in a few days' time, we'll begin the first of a few series of blog posts in Aglarion's Almanac, which is my journal on there, which are theological reflections on video games and using video games to theologically reflect, which has been a part of my academic work as an ordinand, but now that I've had some of that stuff marked, I'm now able to release it. So I'm going to start with a reflection on forgiveness in Life is Strange True Colours. So if you have played that game and you are interested in something theology, religious studies, Christianity adjacent, that blog will be going up in a few days. Please do give it a read, and there'll be a few more following after that.
It's also just an excuse for Dan to say he plays video games for uni.
Yes, this is the thing. I have to be able to justify the amount of time I spend playing games, and I can do it if I say that it's for theological reflection. It is for theological reflection, but it is also a good excuse. But there we are.
Also, if you haven't already, follow us on Twitch as well, because we're 4 away.
We're 4 followers away from the magic number. We need 50 followers before we can start to consider monetizing anything that we do and receiving donations from those of you who very kindly follow all of our endeavors and exploits so far. There will also be news in a few days' time on Twitter as well. We'll come out on Twitter about if you have any creative ideas for NPCs, how to get them into the game. And indeed other ways of getting involved in what we do. If you draw things and enjoy drawing things for fun, please do keep an eye out for some of the things that we need drawing over the next little while. We're trying to put together a lot of information about things that we need to do to kind of make this stream a bit more layered, and all of the information for that will go out on Twitter as well, so keep an eye on Twitter for that. Have I missed anything? Is there anything else that needs to be said?
I think that's all good.
Cool.
I mean, if you want to send us any fan art,
yeah,
please do.
Please do. I
love seeing fan art of my characters.
Cool.
I have fan art of a D&D character as my background on my laptop. I can't show you, but
for obvious reasons.
You'll all just have to believe me.
And thanks for the session again, Dan, and thanks for running everything.
No, you are more than welcome. Thank you very much for playing. Thank you, people, for watching these innate exploits of arguing over what year is it, and other D&D adjacent things.
You know, like, do you have life insurance or shall we smash or pass?
Yeah,
the obvious
exactly,
questions.
Yeah. But
Adventuring life insurance is a real.
The answer is usually smash.
Hang on, Dan. If we end up smashing a King's Tier next session, you need to call the episode "Smash or Pass." I'm begging you.
That is a genuine.
Please, it's funny.
We will return in 2 weeks' time today on the 6th of June for the 6th episode in our series entitled Smash or Pass.
Yeah.
But there we are. On that note, it was very, very nice to play D&D this evening. Thank you for playing. Thank you for watching. We will see you soon. Be excellent to one another. Enjoy the next 2 weeks. Goodbye.
Bye.